Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. In this one, I wanted to run through the history of Batfleck and what exactly happened with Ben Affleck's Batman. We have a timeline that has been well presented here by RevengeOfTheFans.com, which I think is a Star Wars, like anti-SJW Star Wars site, but I could be wrong. But anyway, okay, let's delve into it here. I'm going to breeze through the early parts and then get into the really interesting stuff on the back end of this chart, which is basically the collapse or the end of Batfleck. So in August of 2013, months after Argo, for those of you unaware, he received a lot of high praise for the film Argo, which he directed for Warner Brothers. And also all of his movies are done at Warner Brothers. Even the most recent movie that he did, I can't remember the name of it. It's where he's coaching a basketball team, basically, at his alma mater high school. And that movie is also a Warner Brothers picture, so he does a lot of films with Warner Brothers. Anyway, in August of 2013, months after Argo takes home the Academy Award for Best Picture, Ben Affleck is announced as the new Batman, and he will debut in Batman v Superman when it comes out on July 17, 2015. Of course, this is interesting. You know, Ben Affleck was on the exact opposite trajectory of Robert Downey Jr. in his career. And what makes you say that? Well, Robert Downey Jr. was on a downhill trajectory. He basically had already hit rock bottom when he got Iron Man, and Marvel Studios was so desperate to have somebody to get into the role that basically really needed the money. They couldn't pay very much, and he certainly didn't make very much money on that first picture. How much did he make on Marvel's Infinity War alone, the third Avengers film? He made over $150 million in that movie, and I think he made over $300 million in Endgame. So he definitely wasn't making that kind of money back in the day. But anyway, the point being is that Ben Affleck became Batman as a choice. He had so many different things that he could do. He could have gone into making another film like Argo and going for a Best Picture. He could have gone down the director route. Instead, he went to play Batman. He went that route of trying to get this mass appeal fame and celebrity. You know, like Christian Bale and Michael Keaton and these other actors are super, super well known. I wouldn't say that Ben Affleck was a superstar at this point. I wouldn't say that he was a huge success or hit or even a well-known celebrity. I think that the Bill Maher clip when he was debating Islam with Bill Maher, that really elevated his profile, actually, and made him much more famous, even though he's attacked vigorously by people on the right. I think that really did elevate his profile because it was such a viral moment when he's debating Sam Harris in that, I believe that was in a 2015 clip. But I think that really he became famous, super, super well-known famous when he accepted the role of Batman, which is interesting. In December of 2013, Chris Terrio, who wrote Argo, is brought on to rewrite David Goyer's script for Batman v Superman. So for those who are unaware, David Goyer did not have a positive reception to his script. It was not something that was received very well. He was involved with The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises, but he's criticized to be not the best writer. And I don't want to delve too much into that debate. We'll just move on. In January of 2014, Warner Brothers announces a production delay, shifts the release date from July 17th of 2015 to May 16th of 2016. And by the way, they delayed it even further than that. Batman v Superman was released on May 25th of 2016. So there was a 3-week delay that happened as well. So the film was delayed multiple times, and it's crazy to think that the movie almost came out a full year before 2016 in July 17th of 2015. In May of 2014, principal of photography begins on Batman v Superman. On August 2014, the release date is changed a second time to March 26th of 2016, which again is also wrong. It was March 25th, not March 26th. Principal photography wraps on Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice in December of 2014. You can see May to December. That's pretty standard for principal photography, I do believe. In January 2015, the principal of photography begins for Affleck's next acting job, Gavin O'Connor's The Accountant. So right after BVS, he delves directly into The Accountant, which I've heard is a very good movie. I haven't seen it, but I've heard really good things about it. So The Accountant was kind of more in line with the Argo route. It was more of the Oscar bait picture, whereas Batman v Superman obviously was the popcorn flick supposed to break $2 billion. That was the expectations that we had for it, and it didn't reach anything near, I think, what people expected. And that's something people don't remember. Everyone's like, oh, BVS made a lot of money. It made $800 million, you know. And it did, but you have to remember that BVS was supposed to make $1.5 billion. It was supposed to blow out Captain America Civil War, which came out in March. BVS comes out 2 months later and makes less money than Captain America Civil War. Granted, you have to keep in mind that Captain America Civil War, they've openly admitted, the Russo brothers have, and other people at Marvel, that it was I think it was actually Kevin Feige who admitted it, that Captain America Civil War, which came out in March of 2016, was a direct response to Batman v Superman. So Batman v Superman was announced all the way back here, in whatever it was, 2013. And shortly after that, Marvel's like, hey, we have our own Captain America v Iron Man movie. We'll call it Civil War. And it pretty much has nothing to do with the comics. So the phrase Civil War is a bit of a misnomer. Moreover, it's not really following the comic book storyline. Although I do think that movie is okay. It's not great, and it's pretty much overrated. So now let's get into the juicy stuff here. In February of 2016, reports surface online that Warner Brothers is nervous because Batman v Superman isn't testing the way they'd like it to. It's a problem that's magnified by the fact that the budget for the film is immense, and hopes were high that this would kick off their shared universe in grand fashion. And you have to remember that they already tried to start their own universe when they released Green Lantern with Ryan Reynolds. That was a colossal flop. And even Ryan Reynolds, you can find clips online of him being like, yeah, that movie was shit. He's pretty honest about it. And I think that in this case, they were expecting the movie to be great, and they weren't happy with the way that it was testing. And that doesn't mean that the movie's not a great comic book film. It doesn't even mean that it doesn't appeal to me as a comic book fan. It means, I remember when I was watching Batman v Superman on opening night, and I was in there with a really elderly population. It was like Sunday. So, it was like the Sunday after church crowd in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And I remember there were a bunch of grandmas in there. They were like 75, the Hans Zimmer score fucking exploding all around them, the bass boosting throughout the entire IMAX theater. And, as Doomsday, this CGI Ninja Turtle looking dude comes flying onto the scene. And I'm just like, there's no way anybody in here is enjoying this besides me. And I kind of was right. I looked around and it was a lot of 2 hours and 40 minutes. 2 hours and 31 minutes of where's the bullet in the desert? And what is this? Who is Lex Luthor? What the hell is going on? And then they were fight, and then the movie is called Batman v Superman, and the characters fight for 8 minutes of the movie. To say it's Batman v Superman in any way, I mean, the entire final act of the movie, they're buddy, and I think they were kind of just like, wait, what? This is not anything. Whereas a movie like The Dark Knight, in comparison, is something that I could easily take my grandma to, and she can follow the movie. So, in March of 2016, Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice is released. It opens to $423 million worldwide, and it receives a B Cinema score. Keep in mind that a B Cinema score is pretty low. I think a mediocre movie gets an A-, a good or above movie gets an A. A B Cinema score is pretty low. An A- is something that's a little bit more acceptable, I think. Pretty much every comic book movie is aiming for an A- cinema score. That's what Captain America Civil War got. That's what most Marvel movies get. And then you have the occasional A ratings on Avengers Infinity War, for instance. In April of 2016, though, you will see Justice League begins principal photography. So notice what happened here. They started principal photography, which is shooting, on Justice League 1 month after Dawn of Justice came out. So when Dawn of Justice comes out, they said it had a 44 on Metacritic. Well, on Rotten Tomatoes, it had it's in the high 20s, low 30s on Rotten Tomatoes. And given that, you have no time to course correct. So Justice League goes in, and basically this is why the whole debacle with Snyder even happened, because excluding the tragedy of his daughter passing away, but this was inevitable because basically Warner Brothers wanted to course correct. They wanted to course correct after BVS and turn Justice League into a Marvel movie, but they didn't have the time to do it. So their way of pumping the brakes was basically bringing in a whole new director. And in April of 2016, they're working and shooting on Justice League. It's officially announced that Ben Affleck will get his own Batman movie. So after BVS, they're going full steam ahead with the Batman movie with Justice League. June of 2016, Justice League is revealed to now be just one film and not have part one. So that's a huge course correct that they made. Again, they didn't really have time. That's 2 months after they started principal photography. That's after shooting. And before April of 2016, the movie was in pre-production for at least a year, right? So, they really were expecting everything hinged on Batman v Superman. Everything. And it just didn't work in terms of the cinema score, in terms of the Rotten Tomatoes rating. And I can understand that. If you're not a big comic book buff, it's difficult to follow. It's off-putting. It's esoteric. It's a little slow at times. It's really, really dry and dark and depressing. So it's just not something that everybody will get into, and I totally understand that. In October of 2016, and here's the other thing about BVS that I'll say. Here's the problem, I think, with what Snyder did, is that not only did he divide the general audience, that's normal. Comic book movies do that all the time, right? Comic book movies divide the general audiences. Some people in some demographics, i.e., older women, older men, even sometimes millennials, are not going to be into the films as much compared to Zoomers and compared to young people, Gen Xers, etc. And given that context, you're inherently, by making a comic book film, alienating a certain percentage of the audience, right? And the problem with Batman v Superman and Zack Snyder is that he didn't try to win over all of the comic book fans. He not only divided the general audiences, he also divided the comic book fans, because there were the Batman fans that were there watching and said, why the fuck is Doomsday here? Why in the world does Batman kill people? And why is he calling in strafe runs and mowing down 12 thugs and then jumping into the warehouse and then killing people with grenades? You know, so there is that portion of the audience. So basically, he wins over only the Snyder cultists. A small fraction of the people, and that's what that 25% on Rotten Tomatoes, that is pretty much what's there, is you have 50% of your audience, roughly, we'll just assume this, 50% of your audience is hardcore Batman DC Comics fans. They love The Dark Knight. They love these other movies. 50% of your audience are just people of, we're going to the movies this weekend. What movie are we going to see? We're going to see the biggest blockbuster in the theaters, and that is Batman v Superman. Seems cool. Batman's fighting Superman. Sounds interesting. How could you go wrong, right? So the problem is with the 50% that's the general audiences, they just couldn't get into it. It's too dark. It's too esoteric. The bullet in the desert, this Ninja Turtle looking dude comes flying in. He looks fucking stupid. You know, what's going on with this movie? And so that 50% is gone. You know, grandma who you wanted to watch a fun movie with on the weekend, she hates it. Okay. And then that leaves pretty much that 50% comic book audience. The people like you, the people like me. But the problem is he didn't win us over. It's not even like he won over half of the audience. Now, you can make movies, comic book movies, they've done this before, where you target the movie just to comic book fans. A lot of the early X-Men movies did this, as they said, we don't really care about general audiences. We know that some people are into X-Men, some people are not. Some people are going to like comic book movies, other people are not. We're just going to play to our base. We're going to make an authentic, legit comic book movie with time travel and crazy characters and crazy costumes, and it's going to be a little zany and goofy or whatever. But we're intentionally alienating the general population. With a blockbuster film like Batman v Superman, you either got to go Avengers, you have to go Avengers route, or you have to go Dark Knight route, where both Dark Knight and Avengers can appeal to general audiences, and BVS couldn't, because it was just tonally too out there, too in line with The Dark Knight Returns, and frankly, The Dark Knight Returns is controversial. A lot of people don't like it. A lot of experts and people that follow the comic book industry closely do not like it. You can even go to the real comic book gamer. He's a friend of mine, and he also just recently made a video about how The Dark Knight Returns is overrated. If you're really a truist to the to the Batman canon, then you're not going to like The Dark Knight Returns, because it challenges some of the core aspects of the Batman canon. And fundamentally, The Dark Knight Returns is made as an Elseworld story, and it is still an Elseworld story. You'll notice that The Killing Joke, 1988, is shortly after 1988, 1989 maybe 1990, it was added to the canon. Much to the chagrin of Barbara Gordon fans, obviously. But it was added to the canon because it was just that popular. It was just that successful. The Dark Knight Returns still is not a part of the canon, the true Batman canon. It is an Elseworld story, whereas other, transformative works, like, again, The Killing Joke is the main one that comes to mind, was just, even though it was intended to be an Elseworld story, they're like, hey, we want that in the canon. It's too good to leave out. And that's not the case with Dark Knight Returns, and I think that's for good reason. Most fans are not into Batman killing. You have to also understand that most fans are raised on, this generation, my age, are raised on what? In terms of mainstream interpretations, excluding the comics, Batman the Animated Series, and the Batman Arkham games. You know, you watch a movie, The Dark Knight is really what revived my love for Batman. I watched that movie in 2008. Somebody invited me to go. It wasn't even my idea to go. And I was like, oh my God, I loved it. And right after that, I was sold. I had my entire room, still from middle school. I kept it exactly the same. It has all this Heath Ledger Joker stuff on it. I was mesmerized by that film. I've seen it like 60 times. And the thing about it is that we watch those movies over and over again, but we still feel a deeper connection to Batman Arkham. We still feel a deeper connection to Batman the Animated Series. And why is that? Because we have spent hundreds of hours watching Batman the Animated Series over the years. We've spent hundreds of hours playing through the Batman Arkham games, watching YouTube videos on them, etc. And for the Dark Knight movie, even if you watch it tons of times, you're still not on that level of investment. And it's just one movie that comes out at one point in time. Batman the Animated Series carried on for over a decade. The Arkham games carried on for nearly a decade. So given that context, it's difficult to compare. But I say all of that to say that we feel such a deep connection to Batman the Animated Series and Batman Arkham, where Batman doesn't kill. And that's why fans, that part of that 50% is fragmented. Okay, I've rambled on about this long enough. January 2017, Live by Night is released on the 13th and is a misfire across the board. Poor reviews, so this is a failed Ben Affleck project. The Accountant did okay at the box office. It certainly had high acclaim, and again was kind of his Oscar bait, Argo competitor type of thing. Didn't really work out for him perfectly well. Affleck shocks everyone by stepping down as the director of the Batman mere days after affirming he was still making the film, and this was of course due to creative differences. It's kind of amazing to be in the situation where you have the keys to a Batman movie and to step down from it. I will say, too, I much prefer the pitch of Ben Affleck's Batman than Matt Reeves' Batman that's currently in production. Because Matt Reeves' Batman is like a long Halloween prequel story with no Bat family. Ben Affleck's pitch was a Batman Arkham Asylum movie. It'd basically be the movie version of the Batman Arkham Asylum video game, where the entire thing takes place in the asylum and it's all of Batman's enemies packed together in the asylum. Tell me which one you'd rather see. That, where Batman is trapped in an asylum with all of his arch nemesis, basically following Batman Arkham Asylum, the graphic novel, A Madhouse on a Serious Earth, or the Batman Arkham Asylum video game from 2009. If you have the choice of that being made into a movie or what we're getting now, which would you prefer? And I'm curious to know in the comment section below. If you disagree with me, then please let me know, but this is kind of how I'm feeling about it. I'm feeling as though there's no way in the world you can say you would rather see this Matt Reeves kind of like Batman Begins redo type of thing, very, very similar. The only exception is that he's not going to delve as deep into his origin, but even still, this is still like the early days. This is in the first couple of years of Batman's tenure. I want to see Batman in his prime with the Bat family. That's what I want, and I don't know if we were even going to get that in Ben Affleck's Batman movie, but it would have been great to have that opportunity. Anyway, in May of 2017, shortly after that report, it's announced that those reshoots will not be directed by Snyder, but rather Joss Whedon. The reason cited is that Snyder can properly mourn the loss of his daughter. In June of 2017, the Justice League reshoots begin, reshaping the film completely. In August, Affleck's brother Casey Affleck let slip that Ben won't be doing the Batman. Oh, whoops, dude. Major screw up. January of 2019, Deadline reports that Ben Affleck is exiting the franchise. So he stepped down at first from directing the movie, but he was going to still be in it. And then in January of 2019, he steps down altogether. It's the end of his run. Affleck retires the cape and cowl on an episode of Jimmy Kimmel Live. And Zack Snyder made a tribute to him. There was a time above, a time before. There were perfect things, diamond absolutes. This is a pretty good line from the film. There we go. That is the timeline of what has happened here. And now, of course, what they haven't added yet is that Ben Affleck is returning. And the question really is on all of this is, where do we go from here, right? I think that Flashpoint is going to get rid of Ben Affleck. I think that it's going to get him totally out of the picture and basically make it so that he's gone. But I don't know that that is the best choice when we really could build out this multiverse where Batfleck still can live in the DC extended universe. It's just going to be interesting to wait and see. I think that Ben Affleck still wants to do the role. I think he just got frustrated with WB, but that might mean that he can be swayed to stay. And I really hope that that is the case. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Shout out to all of my elite members. Check the link in the description below if you want to become a member. Bonus members only videos every single Sunday. And you get chat emojis, badges in my chat, etc. Tons of great benefits. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. See you all in the next video. Peace out.